Good morning. Today we're working on a Catalina 34 heat exchanger. It happens to be a universal or a Kubota base motor, however prevalent in so many vessels all around. So just give you a quick little overview and get going. Here is a short list of handy tools to have available, both metric and standard: wrenches, sockets, bits, pliers, towels, catch tray, bucket, paper towels, WD or lubricant, screwdriver, sharp knife, screw gun, and probably a good bit of patience. Here is the existing heat exchanger. It seems to have a small leak in it. It looks like, for example, these two hose clamps which secure the heat exchanger up away from the motor have either come loose or were not installed correctly. So we're going to swap this one out and then put in the new one and make sure it's secured properly. You can see here it's moving around. Something you probably want to be prepared for is the fact that the hose clamps, depending on when it was worked on, etc., might have two different size sockets. This you can see is 7 millimeters, the other one is 5/16. So be prepared to have the two different sizes. Having clear access to the whole back end of the motor compartment is essential. Try to put all the panels and cushions in position and out of the way. Have a bucket or pan available because you will be draining some of the and most all of the coolant out of the exchanger. As you can see, the pan is catching most of the coolant. Another kind of a nice thing to have for this particular job is you're going to find hose clamps in awkward positions. So therefore I have something that's kind of nice in the sense that there is a little ratchet drive set up to my socket, and it's just the right length and can get into tight spaces. Don't think you're going to get a lot of torque on just a regular straight bladed type of setup on a hose clamp. You just don't get the hose quite tight enough. It's nice to have the hose clamp real tight, especially when you're talking a system like this. It's critical to have maybe even double hose clamps. This one was done with single hose clamps. I might double up on this one. I have the existing heat exchanger out. You can see that it was on top of a bracket, and this pointed area of this bracket, I think, was digging into the heat exchanger. That's why it's really important to have the heat exchanger on the saddles and with the appropriate hose clamps and brackets. One thing that I noticed here is this hose is a little bit compromised. I might trim this back a ½ inch or more, and so it sits on there better. It looks like it'll be probably pretty old, so we're gonna see if we can tune this up a little bit. So this boat is probably about 20 years old, and this piece of hose has a sizable amount of chafe as it goes through part of this bulkhead in this locker. It goes up to a vented loop. As you can see, I've taken the hose off, and I will take the hose, measure it, get a replacement hose, and make sure that it is all good to go. Here is a picture of the hose prior to removal. All right, I got the hose. Make sure it's high temperature water hose. It's reinforced, as you can see. It's the right size, so I'm going to install it. That's a good time to get in there and do a little cleaning. It's a rare opportunity when you have the heat exchanger off, and it's a good idea to kind of do a little mop up at the same time. I did a little spray of WD-40 just to kind of keep the bolts and the rust down to a minimum. You've got a shaft here, and you've got the transmission right here, so I probably will check the transmission oil level at the same time. This is the transmission dipstick, so to speak. So this threads in here like this, and you can then check this level on here. It's got a little mark, and I just topped it off, so we're looking good, right to the mark. So that's pretty important. And you probably want to check this probably at least once a year, probably 2 or 3 times a year if you're using the boat a lot. As you can see, this is starting to come together. There are 3 hoses that come into this side of the heat exchanger, and so I'm doing those first. Of course, those are hardest to get to, up against this bulkhead and over by the exhaust elbow. And then I will do this guy over here momentarily, and then of course put the saddles and the appropriate other hose clamps that hold on the heat exchanger in the proper position. It's important to note when you put the heat exchanger in and put it in the saddles, there is a rubber anti-vibration pad that helps secure it into position and keep it nice and cozy. That we will go and put in also at the same time we mount it up. As you can see, you need a deep socket to get onto these particular hose clamps, and I typically just get snug, and this is in position nicely. It's not moving, it's very solid. All the hose clamps are nice and tight, double checked, and we're looking good. We'll start it up in a moment. We'll fill it up with new fresh coolant and ready to go. Our heat exchanger is in, hose clamps double checked. I would probably, if I had more time, double clamp them. However, this is a pretty standard installation. The vibration pads are in, sandwiched there, in on the saddle. You can kind of see, and they help keep the heat exchanger from vibrating around and so on. This is a zinc right here. This should be changed and looked at probably twice a year at least, maybe more often. They seem to corrode pretty quickly in the salt water. They are designed to, of course, corrode. There is also a ground here underneath. Not sure if you can see this right here, but this is a ground, and I will bring this over to the engine grounding plate. It helps also preserve the heat exchanger from galvanic action. Go to styronyachting.com and find out a bit more about how we can help you with your next boating project. Serving Southern California for 40 years. Have a great day.